My father and his cousin, Dr. Robert Thompson, knew Maud when they were children. I've come to ransack their memories. Who are they, Daddy?
That's Grandma. That's Maud.
Was she a nice person?
Very nice. One of the smartest persons that I ever met. And evidently, she didn't go to school. But for us, we knew her slave owners had a daughter her age, and she taught Grandma, you know, what she knew.
So she taught Grandma how to read and write?
Yeah.
Well, my mother just said that she was a very strong person, that's all, and that she was the decision maker, and she took care of business and took care of the family.
She looks like a tough cookie.
She was, from what I gather, yes.
I wasn't afraid of nobody. Two people, God and Grandma. Only two people.
My great-grandmother still captivates our family. She was only 8 years old when she became free. How did she and the other former slaves accomplish so much? To understand that, I need to know much more about what they did with their newfound freedom. After so many years of being treated like property, even the smallest act of self-determination was enormously significant. Have you ever wondered about the origins of your surname, Freeman?
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, so you had Freeman and you had Freedman. So was it Freedman as a result of having been slaves and let go, or is this handed down from free men? I feel certain that it's Freedman.
Right. And many of our ancestors took the name.
Yeah.
It signified the biggest difference before and after slavery, which is that you were free. Taking a surname was the first step in creating a new identity as a free person. We still don't know the origin of my own surname, Gates, even after years of research. Some freed people took the names of their former masters, but many severed all ties with the slave past.
My grandmother was the daughter of a former slave, and her mother, as soon as slavery was abolished, she renamed herself. And she named herself Kentucky Shannon. And when asked why, were you enslaved in Kentucky? She said no, that she liked the sound of the name. And she absolutely prohibited anybody from knowing anything more about her background. She said, I'm Kentucky Shannon, and that's all you need to know.
What stories have you heard about the origin of the Woodbridge name?
What we were told, and this is still goes on in family gatherings, that when Papa, and I'm not certain who Papa was, when he left from the plantation, you know, depending on who tells it, the story gets grander. But he walked across the path and he decided he was going to rename himself. And the first thing he came across was a wooden bridge. And so he decided, I'll change my name to Woodbridge.
After our first series aired, people would stop me on the street and ask, why did you only do the family trees of well-known people? Why don't you include a person like me?
Why did we get this bug to want to know?
So this time, we invited the public to submit their own family stories. The response was astonishing. We chose Kathleen Henderson from over 2,000 applicants. This was your great-great-great-grandfather. His name was Dudley Woodbridge. Well, this is the slave schedule from the 1860 Federal Census, and this is a page for a slave owner named Grafton D. Woodbridge. Kathleen, what do you think the D stands for in Grafton's name?
Dudley.
Dudley.
Yeah.
The same name as your ancestor. He might have been walking across the bridge. But we also think he was walking across the bridge owned by his owner named Grafton Woodbridge. Grafton Dudley Woodbridge.
Sorry, family.
Many freed people reinvented their past as well as their names. This makes learning about our ancestors even more challenging. What are you most eager to learn about your family?
I don't know, everything. All of the little stories are amazing, are fascinating.
Actor Don Cheadle has never heard anything about his ancestors who lived through the aftermath of slavery. So we searched for clues about his father's side of the family. The paper trail that we uncovered confounded our expectations. Unlike most African Americans who were freed by the end of the Civil War, your ancestors weren't.
They couldn't get it right.
Well,
They just stuck to it.
well, somebody didn't get it right, but it wasn't your ancestors, it was the people who owned them. Take a look at this.
Chickasaw Nation Freedmen Roll.
This document is an official enrollment card for the Chickasaw Freedmen, the former slaves owned by the Chickasaw Nation.
Owned by the Chickasaw Nation.
Owned by the Chickasaw Nation. Your ancestors were enslaved by Native Americans. Here's your great-great-grandmother, Mary Kemp, her 11 children, including Bill Cheadle, your great-grandfather, William. And you can see William's father, Henderson, or Hance Cheadle. You are one of the few African Americans who was not enslaved by white people, enslaved by Native Americans.
I don't know how I feel about that. It's crazy because really you feel like, oh, the two biggest blights on the way this country started, you know, slavery and the genocide of the Native Americans and the Trail of Tears and all those horrible stories of what has happened to the Native people here. And then our family was owned by people who had suffered. It's just, that's mind-blowing.
Most people don't realize that the Cherokee, Creek, Seminole, Choctaw, and Chickasaw nations owned slaves. As self-governing entities, they weren't subject to the laws of the United States. So what did this mean for Don Cheadle's ancestors? When the Civil War ended, the 5 civilized tribes kept their slaves. They refused to liberate their slaves.
Everybody wanted to roll with the slavery thing as long as they could.
That's right. They said, come and get them.
Yeah, you gotta take my slave.
You got it, yeah.
Pry it from my cold, dead hand.
And I had no idea. I mean,
I had neither. This is amazing.
the United States government didn't make a treaty with the Chickasaw until 1866, forcing them to liberate their slaves and make them citizens. The Chickasaws freed their slaves, but they did not offer them citizenship in the Chickasaw Nation.
Are they honorary white people? I mean, what's going on here?
Don, your ancestors were in Indian territory, yet they were neither Chickasaw nor were they Americans. They were a people without a country and without any legal status at all.
That's crazy.
The Chickasaw freedmen would spend decades in this stateless limbo, invisible and forgotten. But most of the former slaves entered the Reconstruction era with unparalleled hope. They were eager to build new lives in the South. Did you think that you would live your whole life in Tennessee?
Oh, no. I knew I wanted to go somewhere because I didn't like the cotton fields.
One of the first songs that you wrote, I believe, was entitled Nutbush City Limits.
That's true.
Could you sing it for me?
Church house, gin house, dun-dun-dun-dun, schoolhouse, outhouse. Highway number 19, dun-dun-dun-dun, people keep the city clean. They call it Nutbush.
Music legend Tina Turner grew up in Tennessee, where her great-great-grandfather, Logan Curry, had been enslaved. Like most former slaves with no financial resources, Logan had little choice but to remain on the plantation after he was free. Yet he wanted to make one thing perfectly clear. He was now the master of his own fate.